everybody, Anna Sabramowicz here. How are you, my lovely learning designers? Listen, in this video, we're going to be talking about the 3 or maybe 4 things that I wish I knew before I started pitching creative projects, especially interactive stories and scenarios. So I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people, they love doing creative work, but then they're intimidated by how do you now share this with people who are maybe not aware, or stakeholders who are resistant to new and creative ideas, right? So what I have is a bunch of tips for you on the things that I've learned along the way that have worked for me and my students, especially when you're pitching. But what I want you to think about is that even if I'm talking about interactive stories, I'm really talking about all ideas. I'm talking about any time. That's why there's that book by Dan Pink. He said to sell is human, because anytime you want to have, you want to persuade somebody, you are selling them on your ideas. You're selling your spouse on going to this particular movie or this particular restaurant. You're selling your learners on, hey, I know you're doing things this way, but I'm going to sell you that my way is better and it's going to save you time, money, and all those other things. So what I want you to think about is that those conversations with stakeholders, you are selling. You got to be ready to sell. And there's best practices for selling. Now, I used to sell vacuums during university, to make the rent. And what's really cool is that, and sad at the same time, is that what I did is I would sell and learn how to sell those vacuums. But then when I became a consultant and started pitching creative ideas to my stakeholders, I forgot all about the good sales practices. And so one of the things that I want to share with you today is just some of those lessons that I got and the things that I needed to rediscover for myself to actually make these ideas work in the corporate world, okay? So the first one is for you. You can't rely on people's imagination. I think we do this a lot. We come in and we're like, hey, by the way, what you need here is an interactive story or scenarios. That's what you need. Or storytelling. Now, one of the things you're doing there is you're relying on that person to have a context about what you're talking about, right? You're going, oh, they're going to know what I mean when I say scenario. No, they're not. Like, listen, you and I nerd out on this stuff, right? We check out experiences. We go to Articulate Heroes community. We look at all these demos. We read the books. We get inspired. Now, our stakeholders, totally different world, right? They don't even live there. And also they might say, hey, e-learning is a flip book. And they might be right, because e-learning is all kinds of things these days, right? So when you're pitching these ideas, you got to be crystal clear about guiding that experience. Visually, I say, don't even talk about the product. It's not like, when you come into Best Buy or whatever, and you have you're like, I have this problem. The person's not going to be like, you need the Z41. And you'll be like, okay. You don't do that. What you do is you begin with, what's the problem? And how is this going to address the problem that you're facing? So we have high attrition. Okay, cool. You're not going to talk about engagement rates. You're not going to talk about completion rates. You're not going to talk about specific dynamics of the experience, which desktop it's going to work on, none of that. You're going to talk about how you can solve their problem. So you're going to lead with benefits. You're going to lead with what it is that they get out of this specific approach. Now, one of the things that we also end up doing with people, I think this is out of frustration, or maybe we think that the more information we give to people, the more persuaded they'll be. But I actually think it's the opposite, because a lot of times I hear people going, yeah, you have to educate your stakeholders on all the details and what it means to be an instructional designer and what it means to deliver e-learning. I'm like, no. When I go to a lawyer, I don't need to learn the law. I just need that person to become the expert for me, right? So what they need to do is to basically put it in layman language for me, and then clearly spell out what the benefits are for making this decision, and then let me make that decision. So you really want to make sure that you are controlling that that situation. But also, one of the things you want to do is frame that experience in the right way from the very beginning. So there's no ambiguity about where you're going. You're saying, hey, here's some experiences that I was thinking would resonate with solving this problem, and then talk about that. So I hope that's helpful and clear. You just wanted to stay away from what I call technobabble, which is people who are well versed in something. They end up talking in their own instructional design language instead of actually talking in the language of the stakeholder, and the stakeholder is talking in the language of problems. So you have to start talking in the language of solutions. All right. Okay. Easier said than done, I know, but it's called practice, and you have to start, practicing, the way people interview, practice in front of the mirror for interviews. You might have to do some of that, because this is going to be a pitch. You are going to be selling. Now, this leads me into the second point of this. People buy on feelings. Now, I know this might be kind of like, what does this have to do with pitching interactive stories and e-learning? But I think that we forget that every time we're selling somebody on an idea, they are actually not as rational as we are. And I have this like really cool continuum kind of thing I wanted to show you. I don't remember where I got it, but let me know if it makes sense in the comments. I'd love for you to let me know. So, okay. So I have this continuum, and this is the sales process. When our stakeholders are buying something, they buy on emotions first, and then later on, they start asking questions, which are the rational questions, to justify the sale. This is a sale. This is not, they are solving the problem, but this is emotional. This is emotional. Let's not kid ourselves about it. Now, for you, if you come into that meeting all rational, like, here's the reason this is going to work, A, B, C, D, boom, right? You've got all the bullets laid out. One of the things that's going to happen is, as you can see, there's an incongruence here. There's a swap. Later, what happens is you get invested in the project, and then you turn to emotions. So what happens is there's a mix-up here. And I'm not saying that this needs to change in any way. What I am saying is that you need to be aware that this is how it works. Because what happens later is, when you've, let's say everybody says, yeah, it's a go, and then they start asking questions, you're already emotionally invested in the project, then you're just going to get a little bit of a, what's that? You're going to get a little bit defensive, because all of a sudden they're asking questions, and you're already in this kind of emotional zone, like you're invested in the project and it's going to be a go. And I see this happening all the time. I don't know if you can resonate with this, but let me know. I would love to hear it. But the first step in making sure that this is still going to be okay is just being aware that this is how it works, and being aware of where your responses are and how your stakeholders make decisions, which is how we all make decisions. We make decisions on emotions, and then we rationalize those with reasons why, and that's when questions start coming. So know this, be aware of it, and then you'll be able to handle it a little bit better. And then what will happen is you'll be able to appeal and have things ready to support both of these states. But the first state you want to have ready is emotions. We have a lot of the rational stuff ready, like the reasons why things will work and why they have worked in the past, but we don't talk about really the benefits. And the benefits can be as simple as, listen, people don't want to look stupid. They don't want to invest in a project where they're like, is this high risk? Is this going to make me look bad? Is like, a lot of times that is what they're thinking. So ease their mind. Is this going to be a creative project that they're not going to have too much work on? Is this going to be something that'll make the department stand out because it is going to be setting new paradigms for the rest of the training? Like, realize that those things matter to people. And in that moment where you're making an emotional decision, it makes sense. And that doesn't mean you're pitching something that's not useful and valuable, but you're approaching it from that angle. So I hope that makes sense. So people buy on feelings. Okay. Number 3, curate the experience. So listen, this was crazy. So And I'm gonna tell you what happened anyways, but there's this jam study. I know you're like, what does this have to do with anything, Anna? But there's this jam study. And the jam study was that there was this stand, and they had like 15 jams available for people to try. And people would come and try all these jams, and this place wasn't selling any jams. And the jams were great. And then what they did is, this was at the market or something. I really just know the gist of the study, and I don't forgot what it is. But anyways, where the source was. But then what they did is the next week they took and only had like 3 or 5 jams on the table. So they reduced the scope of the of the choices down to like 3 or 5, something minimal. And they noticed that the same jams, the same stand, the same place, they sold like maybe, I think it was like, I don't know, like 20 times more jams than they did on the other days when they had 15 jams to choose from. Because what they realized that people were overwhelmed by choice. Now, what's funny about this is that I basically personally could be a jam maker, because when I first started, I was so proud of all the work and all the demos and all the stuff that I did, that what I did is I would send clients these decks of options, and we'd go through the options, and they would be like, okay, that's a lot, right? And it's funny because I have actually talked to people, and they're like, well, don't you want your client to know what is possible? Show them what it, and I was like, and I believe this. I believe that people needed to be shown what is possible. But I realized that when you become the expert, when you become the consultant, whether you're internal or external, people are relying on you to make that experience more seamless, to take the thinking out of it for them. Yes, because they're busy and slammed and they want to make good decisions, to take that experience and make it just as simple as possible, because you've done all the thinking and the planning and the learning about those experiences for them. Like really, it's like, I'm going to bring that, lawyer analogy again. I don't want somebody giving me 15 options. I want them to give me option A or option B. And I know that those options were carefully curated because I'm the expert, or that lawyer is the expert, and they're advising me, and that's why I'm paying them the big bucks, right? So then, and this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. And it's funny because it's so counterintuitive, because you do want to give people lots of options. But when you give people option 1 and option 2, literally, this is all you need, well curated. This will make people feel like they have options, and like you've carefully selected the pieces that need to be there in order to move the story forward. So whether that is visual design, whether that is the experience type, whatever that is, if you can distill it down to this kind of option, people appreciate that and they move faster. Now, what happens is they could throw out both and be like, no, not 2 of those don't even appeal to us. Come up with something else. That's cool. That's fine. You can take these away, go away. But it's not 15, right? If you have 15, it'll overwhelm people. Bye-bye. So stakeholders, be ready with just 2 really great options. Boom. And then even if this one's the closer one, they can say, this one's close, and can we just modify it? It works. It really works. It's fantastic. So I learned that the hard way after having meetings and meetings upon decisions and choices and all this stuff. Small, concise is key. All right. Now, 4th one. Are you ready for this bonus one? Okay. Yeah. It is called Pick Your Battles. All right. So a little while back, I had a conversation with 2 of my, I call everybody my favorite human because I seriously love humans. But I was talking to Jolt Ola, and I was also talking to Jeff Kortenbosch. They're on 2 different sides of the earth. They work for huge organizations themselves, but they're not even working with each other. And they both had the same advice, which is that, and I totally wholeheartedly took this to heart, is that when you're trying to pitch creative ideas, there will be people that are not your people. They're not going to go along with the thing. They're not going to be engaged with it. They're not going to want it. They're not going to have the same goals. And one of the things you have to do is early on, start being the person who recognizes when the battle is not worth fighting. Because one of the things that you want to do is have stakeholders that are receptive, because you're going to be carrying that project. You're going to be the cheerleader. You want people who are on your team, right? Not constantly fighting you. So you're going to want that. And you're also going to want projects that not only are going to be fueling you because you want to be creative and you want to have great impact and deliver a ton of value to the people you're delivering this to. But one of the things is that you're going to be engaged, and also it's going to be a great win. It's going to be a great success. And then you can take that and leverage it and show it to other people and use it as, a lever to get more of the projects that you think are going to work for your your stakeholders, or just use them as really beautiful case studies, right? Because then people will be like, hey, you know what? I want one of those. Maybe the same people that you lost the battles with initially are going to be won over, because not everybody's a first adopter. Not everybody is, for all the projects, not everybody's ready to jump on. And that's fine. So what I'm saying is that not everybody's going to be on board with you, but make sure that if you have to trust your gut here. Sometimes, like I was watching this interview or presentation by the guy who created Haji Kamal, Doug Nelson. And somebody asked him in the presentation, Haji Kamal is an interactive scenario experience, right? Comic book style, really cool. And so somebody asked Doug if he was like, if the stakeholder, who was the US Army, if they were like right on board. And he's like, no, they weren't. He had to convince them. He had to sell them on the idea. It wasn't easy. And he had obstacles along the way, but he was really passionate about making it work and passionate about the fact that this would work for them. And so in that case, he persevered because he saw that the benefits outweighed the cons. And in some cases, like I said, you have to trust your gut. Sometimes it's cool to push through, because you know that if you just keep on trying hard enough, or you show enough examples, or you get enough people, kind of the momentum swings into your, in your favor. And sometimes you have to say, okay, this isn't the place where I can do this. Let me deliver what I can deliver within the scope, and wait for the next project where I'm going to be able to exercise some of these ideas and be more creative, where it makes a great fit. So that was his advice. And it's funny because I think a lot of us think, hey, this should be easy because I get how valuable this is. But we are all selling, right? If it was easy, then we'd have, there would be no selling. It would just, everybody be like, yeah, okay, that works. But it's not like that. We have to basically, like I said, sell your ideas, persuade, inspire people, show them what is possible. And we're also doing that with our learners, right? So don't give up, keep going. And if you have any advice, any kind of things that have worked for you, I'd love to see it in the comments. Any of the ideas that I shared, if you're like, oh, Anna, what about this? I love to hear that in the comments as well. Make sure you subscribe so you can see your new videos. And if you really enjoyed this particular discussion, make sure you give me a like. So I'll talk to you next time. Take care, friends.